Welcome to the Free Play Arcade Podcast. It is Monday when you're listening to this. We are very excited about that. Some of us are even smashing the microphones in celebration. We're almost 15% sure that you're listening to this on a Monday. I am Chris Delp, the blindfolded KOF 11 player of note. I'm being joined by, of course, Morgan Wade cosplayer and also community liaison, Arthur Williams.
Morgan Wade is clearly my hero.
Before I get on to my next guest, I don't want to forget. Like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. It's over there. Bell icon might be over here. Not sure. It's somewhere. Find the bell icon. Get notifications. But yeah, it's the Free Play Arcade Podcast at the Hidden Base, where you go for all your Enigma 2 news. And with that, we send it to our special Enigma 2 correspondent, CEO, Corey Hayden.
Yeah, if you're wondering where Enigma 2 is right now, Free Play Arlington, where it's lived since we released it, along with 2 other GPI games. Interestingly enough, King and Balloon, a GPI game, the only place you can play it to the public, Free Play Arlington. Enigma 2, GPI game, only place, Free Play Arlington. But Pot of Gold, it's actually available at one other place. I can't name it offhand, but that one was really weird because Pot of Gold to me was the most obscure of the 3. But yeah, it's out there.
It was also the most fun of the 3.
I like King and Balloon. King and Balloon might be my jam, but Pot of Gold is also really cool. Pot of Gold is unlike anything ever. If it had like 8% more refinement, it might be the best arcade game of all time.
It's been very popular since release. So yeah, I mean that concludes our usual Enigma 2 news segment.
All right, so now that we've knocked that out, we're going to go ahead and talk about Arcade 1. No, wait, that's a different one.
Oh, no.
That's a different one.
That's another
Today
one.
we're talking about cheating.
Yeah.
So cheating's been in the news quite a bit. Chris, you can go ahead and cue that up for
all right, so
where we're going.
If you're just tuning in, we did film this the day the Houston Astros apology for their cheating scandal sort of hit the press. This is actually Tuesday, February 13th, if you're wondering where our Wayback Machine goes. But I don't want to do a podcast about, just the Houston Astros, but I do want to use this as the inspiration, the starting point to talk about cheating. So I will go over. They used some electronic means to steal signs. They have been busted hard by the MLB. No one is really contending that they did not cheat. All the players have admitted it, or at least the ones who have said anything have admitted it. But the Houston Astros and their owner, Jim Crane, had their official apology. And let me go ahead and hit the quote so you can see how repentant he is about his team's complete cheating. Our opinion is, that this didn't impact the game. We had a good team. We won the World Series, and we'll leave it at that. Yep. That's it. There it is.
What an apology. I'm totally persuaded that everything is fine.
What I'd like to point out real quick is that the one time that the Houston Astros won the World Series, rather than all the other years where they didn't win the World Series, they were cheating.
Right.
That's a well argued and good point.
Cheating is nothing new. I mean, the Houston Astros clearly cheated, and despite that contention, they won in part because they cheated. I know in my lifetime I've seen the New England Patriots win multiple Super Bowls while blatantly cheating and getting punished for it.
Well, and I mean, this will probably end up being the entire point of the podcast by the end of it. But I guess, it's better to win, right?
Well, in addition to...
Does it matter?
I mean, I really wanted to talk to you two about it because in addition to being a Morgan Wade cosplayer, Arthur Williams is an experienced Evo champion.
This is not true.
Player and a tournament organizer for decades.
Yes, I have been to Evo.
Okay, so there's those things. He's also won a tournament at Evo. Don't let him shortchange himself. And Corey, you're a lawyer. I bet you have as big of a grasp of what cheating is and isn't and the morality of it as any of us. It's got to be something you go over in class, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting to think about because lawyers have this reputation, right, of being the slimy guys that get away with everything.
A reputation, but I don't think it's
But I think in reality, it's that the lawyers know the rules, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Lawyers know the rules of the world because that's their job.
Right.
So the lawyers, so lawyers do spend a lot of time making sure they're not cheating.
Yeah. So let me go into that with you. You're a lawyer, and as a lawyer, like how do you what do you feel is cheating? How does that in a general sense come across to you?
That's a really interesting question. Like, I mean, I think most people would just go with like a standard definition that is like unfairly advantaging yourself against someone else. But I think that the truth is it's not really about fairness. It's about rules.
Right.
Now, in theory, those two are connected. Rules and fairness should be
Hopefully they're working together.
One and the same, right? But that I think is the interesting thing. Like, where does it cross the line on one, and where does it cross the line on the other? So, because for example, what I'm getting to is. We don't know for sure that all the other teams weren't doing it, and the Astros are the ones that got caught.
We don't know.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were.
Right.
One of my personal heroes still is Lance Armstrong.
Right. Well, that comes up in cycling a lot, right? Because you always hear these stories about like to get to they analyze one race, and to get to someone who has never either been tied to doping or associated with doping, they have to give it to like the 54th place or something like that.
Right. And I believe they started just abdicating everything from those years, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, there's just asterisks, no winners for years of the Tour de France.
Right.
Yeah.
And we had our own fun stuff with steroids in the 90s in baseball, the home run challenge, Sosa and McGuire. And people have talked a lot about that. How what was really interesting is, Sosa and McGuire, they're cheating. They're using steroids. That was technically against the rules. Also might have saved baseball.
Yeah. Right. I mean, after the baseball strike, no one was watching it anymore.
I mean, this is what, and we're not making any points yet. What we're really, the biggest point we're making right now is this topic's pretty complicated.
It is complicated. Like, how do you feel about, how do your personal feelings even come into this? Lawyerly speaking, I guess. Like, do you have a completely amoral thought process on cheating, or?
That's interesting. I think I have more. I mean, it's like the difference between ethics and morals, right? I feel like morally it gets so weird, but ethically there's the rules, right? And you have the rules of ethics and you have the rules of the game, and if you're following those, I think that you're good. And that's kind of like when someone is hiring a lawyer, a lot of times if they're trying to get someone to consult with, they're trying to find how they can get the biggest advantage without breaking the rules, without breaking the law. Go to the absolute line and stop there.
Right.
And then, I mean, that was a big part of my job, was writing these memorandums of law that were basically, this is what you can't do, this is what you can't do, and based on your goals, this is the best way to achieve them without breaking the law.
And those are ethics, or those are?
Well, I mean, so
because it's very cloudy to me.
So, well, to me, like ethics, to me, I would say that ethics are having a set of rules, and to be an ethical person, you're not breaking whatever your rule set is, whether it's a personal rule set or anything. Which that might be the same as morality. I know I've listened to probably 100 people talk 100 different times on the difference between ethics and morality. But that really comes to like what we as society want, right? And this is, I'm sure there's people watching the Free Player Game podcast are like, what is going on here?
Well, let me bring it back to arcade games then. Like, I was in Pinball Monday this Monday, and I am the tournament organizer of Pinball Monday, and there is a very, very clear set of rules that govern pinball throughout tournament play if you're going to be representing the IFPA, right? They have a very comprehensive rule set that I'm sure you could poke a lot of holes in with your legal degrees.
Quite.
But it's quite clear when someone plays out of turn.
Right.
You get a 0. You get if you're it's a 3 strikes tournament, so you get a strike, you lose. It doesn't matter how good you were doing. Doesn't matter anything. So Dylan Smith, podcast kind of pseudo regular here, certainly a free play arcade super fan and regular, one of the greatest gamers I know, and growing into one of the best pinball players I know. Was doing quite well on ball 1, and I don't know what sort of mental thing he had. He accidentally plunged ball 2. He immediately caught it. Immediately realized what he did. Caught the ball, held it, called me over, and told the second player what he had done. And what do we do from here? Well, you've cheated. You've disqualified yourself via the rules, even though you're doing it in the most straightforward and moral way possible. You reported yourself. You didn't mean to, but Yeah, I guess he cheated. So I had to.
Those are the rules.
Sorry, those are the rules.
I mean, I guess the thing is, he broke the rules.
He broke the rules.
And
he's not a cheat.
The rules,
not at all.
The rules indicate that when you do that, there's a result.
Right. And it was very clear and very harsh, in my opinion. Like.
Well, I mean, that's super tough, especially in something like pinball when he's done just about everything except for accidentally breaking the rules, unintentionally. But I mean, it still happens. So
he's completely disqualified from that. He loses.
But
he loses.
That's
he
where,
lost.
like, as an attorney, I love it because that's just the rule.
Like, it's objective.
Everyone knew what the rules were, and they were published. And when you break them, it's easy. Now, I haven't read exactly the arguments for and against the Astros. I mean, obviously, they violated the spirit of the game. And that's the kind of interesting rules that exist in like professional sports that, they have these catch-all rules, right? That are don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and then don't violate the spirit of the game. And then that's just up to the league pretty much to decide what does. It's like a TO who will have some discretion on like when to disqualify a player versus when to punish a player versus when to just, like, for example, in pinball, if you abuse the machines, like, and there's a huge different range, right? You can do anything from kick them out, ban them from the place, or just give them a warning, be like, hey, go a little bit easier on the machine.
There's a whole So the pinball machines themselves have a tilt function,
right,
which helps you referee it. There is something called a slam tilt. You're probably, if you're an amateur pinball player, you probably are familiar with tilt. That means you push the machine too much and it says tilt and you lose your ball. You can hit it so hard that the whole thing turns off. Right. That is called a slam tilt. Or you hit it so hard that it tilts your ball and then the next player steps up and it says tilt as well and then it goes on to the third player. Slam tilt, immediate disqualification, too abusive. The machine itself is functioning as a referee. You're just sort of like using that as a guide. That's helpful. But, you have other things like, I don't know, we touched on the Patriots scandal, inflating balls and not inflating balls and using video in private practices for other teams to steal their signals and get the knowledge of their plays before they ever do them. They clearly cheated. It clearly helped them. They had an incredible short yardage defense rate against the Los Angeles Rams in a Super Bowl where they were cheating and they knew beforehand what was going to happen. They're the Super Bowl champions. So did they cheat? Does it matter?
Well, and then of course basketball, every single arena is kind of famous for having a slightly different ball pressure based on what the stars prefer on the team.
Sure,
but that isn't against the spirit of the game, correct?
Well, I mean, it's if it's within the tolerable range, right? Yeah. Well, and that's the thing though that's kind of interesting about the Astros situation, and that's interesting about some rules that eventually crop up that are kind of like a weird modern thing. Because in like baseball, right, sign stealing is part of the game. Like when I was a pitcher, when I was, because I played all the way through early college. When I used to pitch, we would all work on figuring out what the other team was doing, what pitches they were calling, and making sure that we were hiding our signals. Now, so what the Astros did that really violated things was use a high speed camera so that and then use radio communication so that they could talk to each other and then give the signal to their players so that they knew what pitch was coming. So maybe beyond the spirit of the game, but I want to be clear. Sign stealing has always been part of baseball. Sure. You've always been trying to steal it. You've always you've always wanted your base coaches. I mean, this is true. My base coaches at every level, including Little League, my base coaches we'd have little signals if they thought they knew what pitch was coming.
Well, our culture romanticizes cheating throughout. NASCAR has a great saying: "Is if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying." We have pitchers from the 70s who are famous for their spitballs in the Hall of Fame. Right? I don't know where that puts me on cheating, to be honest with you. I mean, I myself still admire Lance Armstrong. I'd rather not hear. I'm not going to defend any sort of personal things he's done to defend his to keep up the airs that he is not cheating, right? But as far as like the success, like he did win a bunch of Tour de France's. We've retroactively stripped him of those titles, but I remember watching him. It was pretty cool. It's against a bunch of other cheaters too, and he cheated better.
Well,
and
maybe they all cheated equally, and he was actually better. Like that's the problem.
Maybe.
And that's definitely always the problem once you open the cheating thing. And
once it's cheating, it's not. Once it's not cheating, it's then legal. At which point, everyone's on steroids, or everyone's using spitballs, or everyone's bumping elbows at the cabinet.
Well, and
if it's legal, then it's a different game than what it was originally.
Well, I think definitely a lot of what's going on here too is like the Astros won when they were doing it, right? So did
the Patriots.
Yeah. Well,
so did Lance.
Well, the thing is, people usually forget about cheating in the past and only care about it when it's happening right now if it's caught.
So did USC football back in their big halcyon
why
days.
do you think that the Astros thing has been such a bigger deal than substantial? Like, I mean, the Patriots got punished, and everyone hates the Patriots.
Well, I don't think they've been punished, to be honest with you.
But that's the thing, right? The Patriots just keep trucking along.
I think.
But why do you think the fallout's been so bad for the Astros versus the Patriots?
Because the Patriots were already the heel.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that everyone was fine with the Astros winning because they weren't the bad guys. And
I just disagree. It's today. Like that's why. I think in 2 weeks it doesn't matter. I think Jim Crane's right.
That's definitely true.
I think Jim Crane's right. We won the World Series. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. We won the World Series. It doesn't matter. Did they even cheat? Like, I don't. Is it relevant? I don't even know.
Well, I'm willing to bet that in the actual rules next year is going to be no high-speed camera, no...
They did it already for this year.
Yeah.
Adopt that rule.
I'm reminded of a UFC fight some many years ago where BJ Penn had gone up in weight class to fight GSP, and somehow Vaseline got all over GSP's back. And... BJ Penn was a grappler, and GSP was a striker. And sure enough, BJ Penn couldn't get a hold of him whatsoever. And after that, they made it to where the Vaseline goes on. The final thing that happens, they put Vaseline in their face, so glancing blows happen, and they don't rip your face open. Anyway, so the very last thing they do is put Vaseline on the fighters' foreheads and noses or whatever right before they go into the thing, so that no one can smear it on their backs, so the grapplers don't have to wrestle a greasy dude.
Well, yeah. And then,
so occasionally, like, cheating happens and there's a rule, and then, at least in theory, it won't happen again.
But I can tell you, I get accused of cheating from time to time. And it'll be...
In what game? Pinball?
In every game.
Okay.
And this is sort of where I'm going, is like, I threw you in Street Fighter 2. Well, you're cheating. Right? You've heard this.
Well, I've been hearing that for years.
For decades. Yeah. I mean,
throws are cheap. Don't throw. It's not honorable.
Sure. You didn't win because you picked claw. I mean, whenever I say that to my opponents, I'm really just sort of getting under their skin. But I've definitely heard it like put that way, right? You're just cheating.
Man, I remember in Smash Brothers when you weren't supposed to block. That was early Smash Melee. It was like you were dishonorable if you were using your blocks. And I used to love it. And then everyone finally got over it. But yeah, it was really funny how, I mean, there are these interesting rule sets, right? And it gets back to that, ethics and morals and discussion there. We all have our own rule sets that are internally our morals. And
button binding. How do you feel? Like, I assume you don't. Do you have any opinions on button binding?
He probably has an opinion of you're in an arcade.
What
you can't bind the
binding?
buttons.
Right. Not an arcade. Not worth playing that game.
Okay, so most video games will usually have, for home console releases, a set of macros.
I understand
that you can hit two buttons in the same frame with one button. The classic example I'd point to, there was a Marvel 2 player named Fnatic who had he bound one of his triggers to an air dash button, which is two punches, at the expense of getting rid of his secondary assist. So you could actually beat him without too much of a hassle if you would snap him in a weird order to force him to not have as good assist. If you make him, he mostly played, but not important. The important thing is he did not play with the traditional configuration of the game. There's no way that this man could go to an arcade and play without like really weird things happening.
Yeah, because he's just using a button to do it automatically.
Yeah. And you can argue that it shouldn't matter. You should take the physicality out of the game. Or you can also argue that, hey, they made this game to play this way. You should play it this way. More recently, you have a bunch of Smash Brothers players who, in the course of the last 20 years, have ruined their wrists playing Smash Brothers Melee and can't play anymore. And you'll have players that will win the first day of a tournament and can't play the next day, and they just drop out sometimes. Well, they invented like a box style controller, the Smash Box, which has buttons for all the directions. So you're just pressing buttons rather than using your analog sticks. And the last I heard, and in any tournament that Nintendo had any presence in, these controllers were not allowed, and you had to play on a GameCube style controller, even though at least in theory, you can't do anything extra on this type of controller. And you could actually argue that there's things that you can't do because you lose the analogness of the joysticks.
Right.
I don't know. It's been very hard on my joysticks to hit left and right at the same time.
Yeah. That does seem
in Marvel 3.
It seems like cheating, really. It seems like cheating. I mean, well, do you feel like players who use those style of controls are cheating?
Well, Tiger Woods famously complained that a handicapped golfer got to use a cart, whereas he had to walk from hole to hole. And I felt this guy's handicapped, and I think he should still be allowed to play the game. But if he can't walk all the way across the field, then I mean he can. So Americans Disability Act might state, and I think that's what it came down to, that this one golfer was allowed to use a cart, and everyone else had to walk and carry their clubs. So, and the Smash Brothers case seems somewhat similar to that in that you have players that literally can't play the game because they've given themselves tendonitis over the long years of.
I know some Killer Queen players who are about to have surgery over control issues. Yeah, that's not ours, by the way. I can play it just like this.
Oh yeah, I mean, don't play it in inferior arcade, guys. You'll hurt yourself.
Yes, you play with broken buttons, you might end up with a broken wrist.
Yep.
I say we swap them out for convex, but that's a whole other argument.
I can play all day long.
Someone mentioned Killer Queen.
Right. Is that cheating? Is that cheating? It's not the arcade original hardware. It's not what Nikita designed it as.
I kind of don't care and feel like that since we have as many cabinets as we have, we can do what we want.
We should take the standards.
See? Oh. And this sort of what I'm getting at is like the sort of amorphous kind of where is the line on cheating? And
I can tell you exactly where that line is. 2004. At Texas Showdown, I was playing against a Faust player from Chicago, and I was losing. He was a better player than I was. I was going to lose the set. What game is this? Guilty Gear XX.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. So I'm going to lose this game, whatever, but I get a big hit. I hit him crouching with a big opener. I dash in. I'm doing this combo that has a pair of 2-frame links. And on the second one, I'm about to hit the link, and I'm on the first player's side, and he elbows my linking hand to where I needed to hit it within 32 milliseconds, and I didn't. Well, I don't even remember if I hit the button or not. And I just kind of stopped and glared at the guy. And I'm like, what the hell? And looking back, I don't know. I really wish that I'd gotten him disqualified or something, because like that was straight up out of the realm of the game.
Yeah. In my opinion, if I'm the TO, that player is disqualified. And much like Dylan, if he did it on accident because he's got wild arms, you're disqualified. I'm sorry.
So I don't think
it was an accident. I mean, there was no way that his left hand.
Well, if it's intentional, if I deem it as the referee, it's intentional. Not only are you disqualified from this match, you're thrown out of this tournament.
I think you should have been.
So, but maybe we should talk a little bit about how, how convoluted rules can get here, and there's
it's arbitrary. Even.
Well, it's just like because if you have a simple rule set, it's really easy to identify cheating, right? Like if, for example, your only Street Fighter 2 rule is no Akuma, and you literally let people punch each other in the face during their matches. Like if that was your only rule, then you know when someone's cheating because they started using Akuma.
Right. They pull out a gun and shoot their opponent.
Right. And so we're good. I mean, but you can kind of see how slowly rule books just get thicker and thicker and thicker as people try to find new ways to gain an advantage. And that's where we're really getting at, right? Like, as you start finding advantages, when does that turn into cheating? Like for the Astros, right? Sign stealing was an art. Everyone thought that, some people had good eyes and they could help their players and signal to them what they thought the pitch was going to be, until all of a sudden the Astros are using high-speed cameras, high-speed communication devices, and being able to communicate directly with their batters on every single pitch.
Yeah, they changed the meta.
Now that's real cheating. Like you've gone too far.
I would argue that up to and including binoculars is fair play.
All right. Well,
You want to know what I think is cheating and should be harshly punished? Throwing at somebody's head.
Right.
And that's right in the culture of baseball.
But just thinking about it, if you, I say make that, you can make the Astros thing
you should get
legal.
thrown out of the game if you throw someone's head. But you don't get, you should. I mean, I'm pretty sure the rule books would call for it to
Sure, but how it's applied?
Well, look,
I don't know. And the fact that it isn't applied in a uniform way means that people throw at people's heads to send a message.
Right.
They've declared that much like the owner of the Astros is cool because he won a World Series, and what does it matter?
Well, and maybe another good point that this shows is that at the highest levels, a small advantage can be a big advantage, right?
Sure.
Because when you have a bunch of professional baseball players all of comparable skill. Obviously, they're all great, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like I was reading something that was, the difference between Michael Jordan and a college player is not even that much, in terms of being better, but that is enough to elevate you above everyone else. So if the Astros are only gaining 5% or 2% or 1%, that little edge might be enough to put them over.
People do a lot for that little edge too.
Right.
And then where it comes down to cheating, I don't know, but being just absolute jerks. Just not even because you are a jerk, but because you wanted to gain that little bit of a slight competitive advantage, and it's outside of a game, or inside the game, and you don't even the morality of it. I don't know.
The way I see it, though, if you don't make that illegal, what everyone playing the game should do is give an earpiece to their pitcher, and then just.
Sure. Well, that's kind of what I hated about the outcome of this. I mean, not only so Major League Baseball has never fined a team and never punished a team like they've punished the Astros for this. And when I think about all those steroid-riddled 90s, I think about all the stuff that these teams were doing that jeopardized player safety, blah, blah, blah. But they helped the game, so it was kind of swept under the rug, and the players received the brunt of it. But yeah, why the Major League Baseball was wow, there's always going to be a problem here. There's always going to be the ability to potentially cheat. Why don't we adopt a slight change that would prevent everyone from being able to gain this advantage, which is literally just having the catcher and pitcher be able to talk directly to each other. And we all know that technology is to the point that there's no danger in having a communication device on the pitcher and the catcher. I mean, the pitcher's standing in front of a batter who can hit the ball hundreds of miles an hour back in his face. So some sort of headset type, not even a headset, but some type of freaking airbud or whatever earbud thing.
And that sort of falls under the making the rules more complex to try and combat cheating preemptively, and what will inevitably happen is you move the bar of where cheating is. Where do you go to gain your advantage?
I think for us, though, one of the important lessons to learn is to try to keep the rules as simple as possible. And I think that's actually one of the reasons, for example, Super Turbo is such a good game. Because in many ways, you're just except for Akuma, right? You're kind of y'all are both going to fight each other. The end. Right.
It is determined, the victor, well, generally speaking, the victor is determined by who the game is the victor. It says it's the victor. As long as you pick your character correctly, that's it. But, even in side-by-side cases, like Arthur described. And we had an incident, Primal Rage, Tuesday Night Fights. Before we actually did a podcast about this before the Primal Rage, and you said that you were going to play by Chicago rules.
By Chicago rules, a term that I made up after the Faust player elbowed my hand.
Right, and indeed, you were defeated by Ray Upshaw. He tried to do his favorite fatality on you.
He succeeded. I tried to shove him aside before he could pee on me.
Right, you played by full Chicago rules.
And still double loss.
You had already lost.
The second loss was being peed upon.
You already lost, but I made note of it as the TO and on commentary that you were indeed disqualified.
You're out of there.
Yeah, you lost via disqualification. It didn't matter. Everybody had a good giggle. And
if I could get disqualified for Primal Rage, then I should have done that earlier.
Arthur's gonna be sitting next to a 12-year-old girl next thing, and he's gonna punch her. He's gonna punch her right in the face. He's I guess I can't play anymore.
Right, and that kind of gamesmanship, where does that belong?
It's hard.
It is hard, and I try, and as a TO myself, I'm trying to take objective stances, but it gets really hard. I try not to bring personal feelings into like if somebody cheated, if somebody tried to cheat.
The problem with
this is why
cheating,
I don't hate Billy Mitchell. I don't hate Billy Mitchell.
Yeah, that's a good segue.
Well, but that's what I'm saying is like he is in the news for a very, very, very high profile arcade cheating scandal. We've gone over it many times. And the truth is, whether he played here or didn't play here, all throughout this entire thing, I've never disliked Billy Mitchell for what he did trying to gain an advantage because I see it everywhere. Right. I cannot punish him for something that I see. Like I said, you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's NASCAR. That's everybody.
That's the problem with arcade high scores. And yeah, I definitely don't want to rehash it a million times.
The low stakes world of arcade high scores.
But that's the big problem, right? It's easy to cheat. It's not very regulated. And,
so why not?
Certainly if you're a named player, you can get away with it for a long time. That's always going to be a problem with arcade high scores. And that's why, though we love besting our own high scores and we love when people submit scores, we don't want people to take them all that seriously. Just because there's too much cheating. It's too easy. And yeah, I mean, there's too much possible high score cheating. And that's why we've talked about tournaments are a lot more fun because it's like, I mean, for example, pinball tournaments, right? Pinball high scores don't really matter, but pinball tournament scores, there you go. You've got an equal playing field and you can all play. But the real thing is no one actually cares about pinball scores the day after. Like you're not writing down your high score on pinball during the tournament. You're just happy to win that match, right? Mm-hmm. If you're doing like a strikes tournament or however you're doing it. And because there's,
I will say David Whitlock is quite proud that he broke the grand champion score during Spring Series Pinball last year. He is the free play pinball TO, free play pinball league TO, right? It's still standing there in Fort Worth's now. Iron Maiden Pinball. He has the grand champion score that he set against Kevin Rodriguez in tournament with all the 3 balls and no extra balls. It's still there, and he is quite proud of it, and rightfully so.
So the Astros, they're in trouble, but they won.
I don't think they're in trouble.
I mean,
they've got some.
I think they're exactly as in trouble as the Patriots were a couple years ago.
Which is they might win the championship. They just won a championship, 2 years ago?
Well,
they just competed for a championship, and they might win this year's championship.
But I guess the thing is, Belichick nenever got fired. Astros fired like everyone, right?
Sure, but that's their choice.
I feel like they should have been fired of the Patriots.
Well, didn't the Astros have to fire them because the people that they were firing were banned from being there? I can look it up, but yes, the answer is yes. They've like the GM, they've all got these year-plus suspensions.
Right. But the NFL certainly could have taken that stance.
Right. Well,
I would have been happy if they did. Like, I feel like they should have if they wanted some integrity in their sport. And I look upon the NFL with less integrity now. I just don't care. I just
was seeing that Justin Verlander, in accepting his Cy Young Award, said of the Astros, everyone knows they're very technologically and analytically advanced.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I don't mind the Astros taking all the video they want to of people not during gameplay, right? And trying to learn what the signs are. And then trying to, in the middle of a game, determine what the signs are. It's just like, using technology to communicate directly to the batter, that's too much.
I don't know. What I really feel like is if they're not willing to take the clear step to solve it, which is let the pitcher and batter communicate directly,
it's going to happen again.
Then they should just let it happen. They should have no rules on this. If they're a league where stealing signs has forever been just part of the game, part of the amazingness, and now they're mad that some people are getting better and better at stealing signs, they should either eliminate it or learn to do it. Because, sure, the Astros won't do it, but what everyone's going to now figure out is how close to the line they can get without breaking it.
Yeah, so this comes down to the way the sport is administered, the refereeing, the TO problem, really. They have inconsistencies in how they met out their punishments or not met out their punishments. So what does it matter? Maybe Jim Crane is absolutely right.
Well,
just kiss the ring. We won.
So, some years ago, I was running a Smash tournament with Versus Gameplay, and we had a Smash player on Team Versus Gameplay, and he decided he was going to rig the brackets. We let him enter, obviously, and And I actually relied on him to see the brackets because I didn't know all the Smash players. Well, he was in one half of the bracket, and the other half had nobody. And so, sure enough, he makes it to winners finals, and then loses there, and loses finals, and takes third place at a tournament that he was maybe the 5th or 6th best player at.
Yeah.
I vowed to never let him handle the brackets again. And at Absolute Battle that year, he said, "Would you like any help with the brackets?" And I'm like, "No, I've got it." Well, after handing the brackets off to whomever was going to run Smash, he told the players, he was no longer associated with us at all. That was like the last thing I let him do with us. But he told the players, "Yeah, I'm supposed to change." Yeah, he told the players that had the brackets that he was supposed to change them. And sure enough, he made it out of pools and winners, even though he probably wouldn't have if they'd stayed. And I'm like, that is so gross. Like, you can't do that.
Well, and to build on this issue, Chris and I were actually talking, I think yesterday or the day before, about why Chris and Arthur can't enter the big money tournaments at free play. Mm-hmm. And you just explained why. And Chris was telling me though that like that's common though for the organizers to be able to enter their tournaments.
As a general rule, they do.
And even big monies. And like as a person, I just recoiled. I was like,
I understand.
I was just like, yikes, because even if it's subtle, even if you think you're being fair, there's that thing in the back of your head that could cause you to be like, well, I could just move him slightly and it'll still look fair. Like there's so much room. Or for example, like what if like, for example, your best friend was like on the same side of the bracket and you wanted to actually play them in the tournament or anything like that.
Easy to bake that in.
Right. Or for example, if you're at the spring series and your favorite Japanese player that you've always wanted to play in tournament is there, you could make it so that you play your Japanese player. And without even thinking about it, that could cause serious issues for the brackets. That could cause serious problems elsewhere. That could look totally innocent, but that is you being able to kind of exploit your position.
Yeah, for sure. So, and everything, every tournament that I run, I am the referee, and if I'm not being objective, then it's a disservice to the tournament, and it's a tough line sometimes, and it is the reason why I shouldn't be competing in high leverage tournaments in which I am doing that, because you can't get away from that. I will tell you in my own personal morality how I handle this is when there comes, because I do compete in tournaments that I am the TO of and have no real prize, right? Yeah. So when it comes down to some sort of moral judgment, for example, tonight we're going to play Death Ball at Free Play Richardson. We'll flip a coin. And whoever wins the coin can either choose which side of the machine they're on or the map. And then the person who loses the coin toss gets to choose the other, right? In my case, whenever I play as the TO, I'm not going to flip that coin. I'm going to tell my opponent they can choose the side and the map. Yeah. So for me as a TO, I give myself as a player every disadvantage I can so that when I win Pinball Monday, as I did, it's everybody can kind of see that like, well, he not only did he deserve to win, he made it extra hard and he still won. That's all I can do.
So I just like thinking, I mean, and these other tournaments though, like that allow their organizers that have decent prizes. By the way,
virtually all of them.
Right, I understand. That's wrong. I mean,
I understand.
I just want anyone who's listening to this that's in the industry. If the industry is ever going to grow up, that can't happen, guys. Yeah. That just cannot happen.
Well, it won't happen. So it's a fighting game thing as well, because something like Overwatch League, the administrators are not good enough to play.
Oh, right. Well, in an Overwatch League, they have a whole back end of administrative everything. But I do think that like you either need to take your role, like for example, if it's a big fighting game tournament that I don't even know, it has a $10,000 or $20,000 prize or a $5,000 prize or even like $1,000 or even smaller. If you're organizing it, I don't think you should play just because of what could happen. I mean, even if potentially you're not eligible to win money, I don't know if that's even enough. Because I could see the TO being like, all right, I won't take $1 out of the prize pool. But even then the TO might have an incentive to do something and they're in charge. Yeah. They're the ones who make all the decisions, all the rules. Yeah. And I know what y'all are. I know there's people on the internet right now who are just thinking like, my friends run this thing. Of course, they'd side with me. There's got to be people thinking that, and that's exactly another one of the problems, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons that as we get through this,
rules. The thought of how easy it is for me to cheat while I am also the person in charge of keeping the rules, like it definitely comes up in my head, and I'm like, wow, that's. Well, yeah, I don't need to fight that person who's clearly going to beat me. I can just go on the other side, like Arthur's friend, right?
One of my
so easy, but
disappointments in the world right now is I generally don't participate in any of the high score stuff anymore. Because I was talking to an arcade operator, and he was like, "Well, why don't you just cheat? Why don't you just change the settings?"
You lose the validity of your own event.
And what I actually realized is I don't even want to submit scores anymore.
Yeah.
Because
it's pretty reasonable, frankly.
It's true. I could, and like, even though there's no stakes associated with the scores, even though there's no anything, I could absolutely, anyone who has access to, who owns the machine could cheat. Who has access to the service side of the machine
certainly have the technical know-how,
could cheat. And I was just like, like, it hadn't really occurred to me. And so now, like, seriously, I play almost all my games in private. I try to keep it like super, and I'll play a game occasionally in public or anything, but anything that I'm like trying to get good at or anything, I try to keep it super secret, because I don't want it ever to get tainted like that. And I don't want even there to be the perception that, mysteriously my score was higher, even if it's totally legit. I hate that idea. And like, seriously though, the other arcade operator was like, just cheat, dude.
Well, there was some speculation in the office or some questions yesterday about like me competing in the pinball tournament, and my answer to that was like, I can't, like, because I might actually win that thing. Like, I don't want. Right, I refuse.
The big Pin Masters that's coming up, that you're not running the tournament. You're a potential assistant TO or backup TO. But even that, and like I
refuse. I might win it. I don't want to win it.
I started out being like, Chris, you should enter it, and then like 5 minutes later, I was like, Chris, you should not enter that.
Right, but my instant reaction was like, I shouldn't compete because I might win, and I don't want to win.
Right.
I'm under the impression if someone else is running an event at free play, then why don't we enter?
I mean, Chris could, but this is what we started to go down the road of. Chris has access to all of those machines. He has access to all of the settings, and he has access to, and he is the, like the public face that's going to be there helping, whether or not he's running the tournament or not. He is a public free play face as a TO. Now, because for example, Carlos from the Richardson kitchen, he gets to enter the spring series, and he can play in there. But I think there's a big difference between the people who are running tournaments or have the knowledge of
you're running the bracket. You're setting up the bracket.
Right.
You're setting up the pinball machine.
And the truth is, it was almost purely an image thing. Like, Chris wouldn't cheat.
Certainly.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. Chris could have very little to do with the tournament other than just helping the people inside the door, or being like, all right, we can go get you a table or something like that. That could be like the full extent. But I still think that if Chris is up there winning, it could hurt the potential image of the event.
Well, I don't, and I've won your tournaments before.
Right.
I've won money during your challenges before. Like, I don't need to prove anything by doing that. But I feel like me now being employed, it just seems like it's a bad look if I win spring series, Titan pinball, pin golf,
Titan pinball,
regional
Southwest
something.
regional something.
It seems like it's going to be a really fun event. You should check it out at freeplayspringseries.com, along with all of our other spring series things that I won't be competing against you with.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's just it's such a bad potential look, and I think that's why at some point lines have to be drawn. And I really hope that both the arcade industry and the fighting game industry really starts to take that more seriously, because I do look at some of the more grown up esports leagues, and you don't see this issue very often.
No.
Like,
it's in our culture too. It's because we don't have enough TOs.
It's true.
We don't. Let's discount the players here and write them off and not let them be TOs because there's a conflict of interest. And who are we left with? We literally have none at this table.
Well, my question for all these TOs out there: when do you have time to play games in these tournaments?
Yeah,
you don't.
That was,
and you know that too.
I was talking to someone who runs events in Austin, and they were talking about this exact same weird thing. Like, they would always enter their tournaments to help boost the numbers.
Correct.
But even if they have, like a 16-man tournament, there's a lot of, and that's being streamed or anything like that, they're running around quite a bit to make sure they're wrangling all the players and everything. That stepping away from that administrative part of the tournament would hurt the tournament just for a couple of minutes while they're playing.
Anthony Chu, Mutant XP, is the leader of the Jazzy Circuit, which we are having the Jazzy Circuit finale here in June, I believe.
In June.
Okay.
Yeah, it's June.
Yeah, it's going to be at Free Play Arlington. That's going to be a part of the spring series, and you should definitely come to that. But the main man in charge, the man who created the Jazzy Circuit, Anthony Chu, out in New York, is maybe the best Necro player in the country. And if not, he's number 2, right? He's very good at the game.
Clearly loves the game too.
And he stepped aside. He's not playing.
Right. I think that's the right choice. I mean,
me and him we talk quite a bit, and we feel very similar about it.
well, because think about the potential. It's just there's too much potential there. But I will say, as to the FGC stuff, and maybe it is me being a little unfair, because there's very few places that have TOs who can pay their bills with their jobs that are at the arcade.
That's true too. Yeah.
I'm not trying to brag or even trying to say anything super negative. It's just I guess
he's losing money on this still, not making it.
I guess that's the thing. There's very little incentive for a lot of people not to play. Because you can see if someone is not able to make any real money or not pay their bills or whatever off of what they're doing, and what's in it for them. You can see they're I just love the game. But you can see that part of loving the game is figuring out ways to support it, because obviously Anthony Chu is going to play Third Strike that week, and he's just not going to play in the tournament.
See, and that's why we do what we do, is we want to play other games with these very good players. Right. And see, I hope, I doubt I'll get to play against Odo-chan when he comes to town. I haven't played against him since Boston. I haven't played him in the state of Texas. Never played against Odo-chan here. He's been here twice, and I don't think I will again. I'm just too busy.
I'm really excited about playing him in his favorite game, Champion Edition.
He is going to play Champion Edition.
Odo-chan on Champion Edition. I'm going to get over there and figure out some sort of goofy gimmick for Champion Edition. I need to do some research.
Yeah, I have played him before. He whooped me. Actually, he let me win one round. It was quite clear.
He's very good at just being oh, I lost, and then wham, and you're oh, I see how it is.
First round's just data.
he's just learning your entire moveset.
He's just running
20 seconds.
He's just learning how you deal with victory of one round that's meaninglessly let you win. I don't even think he doesn't even need to get the data.
This is a pro tip for the tournament. If you know you're not going to win, but you're entering because you love the game and you just want to play against some Japanese players or whatever, if you take your first round, just quit, forfeit.
I'm good.
Walk off the stage, wave to everyone, be and that's all I'm here for, and then retire undefeated. Just be I never lost.
No. You go ahead and play it out. Have your fun. You might have fun in the losers bracket too. Go ahead and do that. Just clip the one that you won. Okay. Post it on our Twitch page, and it will forever be one of our #1 ranked clips. And you can go see twitch.tv/freeplayarcade. Check out that clip section. You're going to see original Spring Series champion Chris Wilson taking down Odo-chan.
That's actually why I love the Japanese players so much, though, because they have such a deep understanding and knowledge of the game that they also can be showmen. There's basically every US player, and certainly every local to DFW, they're just trying to make sure that they do their best, and hopefully hoping to win the round, but they're always locked on trying to win. But the Japanese players have such a deep knowledge of the game. They get to have so much fun, and even when it seems you're uh-oh, are they going to lose? And then they're nope. And you're wow, that was exciting. And then they really know how to put on a show. And I love people who are both good at something and respect the show of it all. It's really cool.
Yeah, Matsun asked me if the Japanese players could indeed play in Hyper Fighting and Champion Edition. I told them yes, they can. Just so you know, it's on an American stick, side by side. We did that at the request of the scene that is developing still in California, that are playing on exclusively American setups.
Right.
So I let them know, and they said, yeah, absolutely. We're here to have fun.
All right. So I don't know. I guess if we learned anything from all this discussion, it's that to keep the rules as simple as possible and just be aware, just pay more attention to anything that could be an exploit, and make your decision. Because the real thing is, you got to know baseball was knowing that something like this was coming. It's just so hard to me. Like, it would be like someone asking if they could plug in their controller, and you're like, yes, but no macros, and then mysteriously they start using macro. Like, there's this slippery slope, and I feel like one of the strongest things we have going for us is that arcade. You're an arcade. You don't own the controls. We own the controls.
I feel like it's my job as the referee. Like, cheating, not cheating, that's my job. The players are going to try and get an advantage. They're going to try and throw on Street Fighter 2 because it's legal. They're going to try and elbow people, I guess, if they can get away with it. And if I see it, they won't get away with it. They're going to be DQ'd. But like, ultimately, I look on these leagues, I look on the TOs, the referees, like myself, like Arthur, who have an impossible job. I'm a perfectionist, but I also understand that I can't be perfect. It's why I don't respect marathon style arcade records, as we've gone over again and again. It's impossible to adequately referee that, so I don't really care.
Right.
But ultimately, it's on the referees. If you're cheating, and I don't really care that the Houston Astros cheated. I'm sure they did, and I'm sure I don't care. It's up to the MLB to punish them in a real way if they're going to, and if they're going to let them continue to be World Series champions, or they already got away with it. Tough.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you really...
They did it. The Astros clearly did it right because they got a ring. Well, and that's what the owner's saying. And honestly, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Wrong.
Like, the more I read about it, the more I go back and forth as to whether or not I like sympathize with the owner or not.
I don't. I think it's slimy.
I don't ever sympathize with the owner.
I think it's slimy.
Right.
I think it's super slimy. And less so the players and the managers that were very, very active in it. Right.
But let's just say you have a league that cherishes stealing each other's signs, and then y'all become the just like, y'all take it to the next level. Like, I can understand why you could be sitting there as an owner and be like, oh, okay,
what's the difference between that and throwing?
I'm so sorry, right? That we use technology in a way that you weren't expecting us to use. That
I'm not sorry.
Even though you've encouraged us to steal signs for more than 100 years, I'm so sorry that we did it to a point that you think we've cheated. Like, I don't know if I would be super apologetic either. And I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't know where I stand on this entire issue with like that level of punishment. Like, is it worth really doing it, or is it worth saying, like, could the MLB have just been like, guys, we think that was too far, so we've instituted a new rule. We're not punishing y'all. Because isn't that kind of like where it should end up? I don't know. Where they just say, whoa, that's too far. And then everyone can debate whether or not the Astros, there's an asterisk for the Astros, but geez, that's a lot of Astros. But they can debate it, or they can just go ahead and let the people debate it and just move on and make your new rule, or make like, I feel like that this is like just overblown, maybe. Geez, and I didn't feel that way at all at the beginning, but the more we've talked about it, the more I've thought that it's not the Astros that sucked, it's the rules that sucked.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I definitely agree with that sentiment, but at the same time,
by the way, they're slime balls. They're slime balls also.
True.
But that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that they're not capable of winning a championship, slimy as they are.
They never did it without using digital communication devices.
I would suggest to you that they couldn't. And what proof do they have against that? They have none.
I would agree with that sentiment. But they haven't done it so far.
It doesn't matter. But there it is. Do you know Noun, aka Fudd, aka my friend Nate, who comes out from Kansas every other weekend? I swear to you, I saw him play a match of Super Turbo against somebody, an old school player, and he was playing footsies.
Okay.
He has analyzed the hitboxes. He actually posts about the hitboxes of Super Turbo every week at the Free Play Arcade community group. And this guy said outright that he was cheating the game. That's not how it was intended, because he was exploiting the hitboxes.
Was he uppercutting T-Hawk from half screen away?
No.
Because I'll give him that one.
Well, what I really think is interesting now that
I'm not going to be sorry for up-flaming Claw when he's behind me, that scumbag.
Well, what I've really been thinking is interesting is actually that exact. We now have so much extra footage of Super Turbo, and we've, there's probably more Super Turbo like digital footage now. Well, clearly that's ever existed, but like,
Yeah, are we cheating? It's
being
digital stuff,
What's
right?
really great is stuff keeps happening on our streams, and people will like be like, "Wait, how did that happen?" And you'll see like a weird clip
Slow-mo.
thing or stuff like that. And I think that's one. It's really exciting that it's happening for such an old game like that. Like I feel like I don't know how Super Turbo got it as right as they did, because I think about how all these other games are like not competitive because they had some sort of issue, some sort of game breaking thing. But by keeping it simple, keeping a straightforward game, and just letting anything that's broken, it never really broke the game, right? There's no, I mean, like you have Claw, right? And I actually love the place that Claw is in Super Turbo, like because you can use them, but you're a scumbag. You're a scumbag.
Right,
If you,
right.
I love that.
I love it as well. It's part of the
and I love like the
benefit of it.
ongoing discussions about top tiers and stuff, because like everyone's like, I don't know, like there's so many variables and there's so many matchup like benefits, and then you've just got Otochon out there using the same player regardless of the matchup and doing it.
And it is what is it that makes that happen that doesn't make it happen in modern games? A consistent rule set. You don't change it every week with a DLC update. The hitboxes are the hitboxes.
Yeah.
Are they janky? It doesn't matter because they are what they are. The rules of Super Turbo have been consistent since the release.
Sorry, I'm reading an article on baseball's 50 greatest cheaters. It's both teams and individuals. It's pretty clear that if you wanted to really like cancel out all the cheaters ever,
you wouldn't have any result. You wouldn't have any results in any tournament of anything ever.
The biggest baseball cheater.
What was it? The thing that took
White
down
Sox, right?
the thing that took down Shoeless Joe Jackson, that scandal.
Yeah.
They literally threw the game.
Yeah,
that's the biggest cheaters
That
ever.
one was pretty dirty.
Yeah.
But then they've got Barry Bonds on here. The Giants a couple times for different cheating scandals, different people sanding the ball and stuff.
I know. And then some of them are in the Hall of Fame. So I figure.
Some of them are.
Yeah, I figure we should wrap it up here, though.
All right.
Don't forget to like and subscribe up there.
We didn't learn
Try
anything,
to follow the
though.
rules.
I feel like I have children. I've watched enough TV
like it's
shows
great.
that like at the end of a thing you're supposed to have a lesson. Isn't there anything that we can learn here?
I got a lesson.
Cheaters always prosper.
If you are running an event, take careful care. Make sure the people that you're giving responsibility, right, that you're allowing to work for you, make sure that they are not going to cheat.
How about this? I can solve this, and it would be the most bizarre, weird, and interesting thing that's ever happened. Truly random brackets.
Not.
Put it in the shuffle machine. Spit it out. See what happens.
We can have that debate another day.
I've done that.
I will not be in the favor of random brackets. That's for sure.
It doesn't work as well as you might think.
No, it doesn't work at all.
It's not. It is random, but it is not fair.
Wait, random, and then you have to run each tournament by however many players you have. So if you have 16 entrants, you have to have 16 tournaments. Each time random brackets. Whoever wins the most wins the tournament.
That actually sounds like it would definitively find who the champion is.
I've done it. I have figured this out. All right, guys. We will be back next week. Thanks,
Bye,
all.
guys.
Thanks for watching.